if you're prototyping, people are deploying. It's like local in the cloud. And so agent runners, we're like, man, we know that people want to use Create. We know that they want to collaborate. We know that they're using coding agents. What if we pull the coding agents closer to the deployment?
Hello, welcome to devtools-fm. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey, everyone. We're really excited to have Dana Lawson on with us. So, Dana, you're the CTO at Netlify, which is exciting. And you've worked at a ton of incredible DevTools company. We were just talking about GitHub and how you helped ship the GitHub discussions product. And then you've worked at Envision and New Relic and several others that I'm sure folks have heard about. You've been in the industry for a while to see all the ups and downs, and we're really excited to have your perspective. Before we dive in and chat more about some of the things you worked about, I would just love to turn it over to you and maybe cover any ground that I missed, intro yourself to the audience.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Obviously, I'm a DevTools fan, not just the podcast, but also just in general. I've been doing DevTools forever, it feels like, being a practitioner and then being a leader. I had a really interesting kind of path into technology, and I think my path is going to become the common path now, which is not having this traditional development background. We've been talking about it for a long time, but I certainly didn't when I got into this rodeo. And it's been incredible to see, incredible and scary to see all the cool shit that we're building these days, and how people with these unconventional backgrounds are also getting into technology. It's been a long road, and I'm probably a little bit obsessed with developer tooling. People are like, come do something else. And I'm like, but I have to help builders build. And now the world can build. So it's been a really fun time.
Yeah. So let's start out with how you got into DevTools, because you didn't really start in the DevTools space, and I think you have a little bit of an interesting journey. So can you fill us in on that?
Oh man, especially, I'll just say it's still intimidating to this day to get to meet and it always sounds like I'm throwing some shade and shit, but getting to meet people with computer science degrees and really, somebody that has spent a lot of their life studying this science. So I don't want to make it sound that way, but I had no intention at all of doing that. Okay. I'm a weirdo. I wanted to do art. I mean, I always envisioned myself painting for a living. And then you realize you want to be poor forever. Try to be an artist, straight up, you got to know some people from Eunice, New Mexico. Nobody even knows where that is. I don't even know where that is anymore. And so I've always had a fascination though, and I've been a curious person my whole life, and sometimes that's a fault, but in math. And, I was lucky to grow up through the age of computers, truly. Back when I was in high school, we were learning Microsoft front page and HTML, it was a new thing. The internet was it was new. And, I was being a rowdy kid in college, and I was like, man, I don't want to be poor forever. So I joined the US Army. They had this emerging field. And all I heard was, okay, I guess I'm going in the Army because I need something to do, but I really don't know if I want to do Army, and computers need air conditioning. And the little problem solver in me, which all we are problem solvers, was plan created. Army, computers, air conditioning, comfort, and then future career. And here we are because of that selfish nature of truly choosing my comfort. But in reality, it was an interesting way that I got my foot in. When I joined the US Army, it was an emerging field. And I got taught for a year everything from protocols to application development in the late 90s. And then, from then on, I got out of the military and really was a practitioner of dev tooling before DevOps. We were all just a bunch of sysadmins and programmers that had to do sysadmin work because, stuff wasn't as separated. And I've just fallen in love with it. I think a lot of curiosity is what what played into that ability to continue to excel in our field, because that's all it takes, man. It's like, you got to be a constant learner. And so that was my journey. A little atypical. Didn't go to Stanford or MIT like all my peers. But if MIT wants to give me a scholarship, call me. I'll go back to school. I'll go to school. I'm here for it.
So you've not only sort of had like an atypical journey in the beginning, but like you've been a leader at some of the like big name dev tools companies that like a lot of folks will know. And I'm curious about that transition from, okay, I'm a practitioner in the industry, you know, I've went through the Army, I've got some training, I've done, you know, sysadmin or dev tools or whatever, like before the sort of industry had established around that, to that path of like being a leader in the industry. That's like that in itself is like a non, you know, traditional growth path to it. I'm like curious, like how did that come about? How did you work your way into like, actually what I want is like, I love the technology and I want to be a leader of people like in the space. Like, what was that?
And I mean, there's honestly some luck in it, man. Like, I think there's a lot of hard work. And I always tell people, don't ever say you just got lucky, because you have to put work into. But there are some things that are outside of our control. But I think it's like having the awareness of when to seize those opportunities are really important as well. And for me, I've just I had a little bit of luck on my side, thank goodness. And I just really grind, man. You know, like, I think that back in the 90s and early 2000s, and you know, especially as I got into some of these bigger companies, you know, mid 2000s, the culture was a little bit different, good or bad. Like, I don't even want to go into that. It's a whole nother podcast for us. But it was more of a grind culture during that time. And there was this self-sacrifice. And I'm not saying that's the key to success, but there is an aspect of like, you know, radical self-reliance on what you want to accomplish as a person that has to be put in to that ability to succeed. And then honestly, like, I like to think about it too, just like that stupid example I gave of like gamifying the Army, but it's like, how are you projecting and seeing your future, and what are you doing, and what do you need to do, and then where do you find those opportunities? And it's like batting 1,000. Like, you're going to get a lot of no's, but it's also being humble and starting from somewhere. And for me, like, I didn't come into leadership even traditionally. I remember that moment. I was the traditional like tech lead. You know, you've grown from a practitioner where you're a senior engineer, you're a staff member, and you're like, cool, I'm the one that sits here and defines the architecture or the systems and the paths, and staff and above you do that. Well, I did that so well, and we didn't have a manager. They're just like, you keep telling everybody what to do. And I was like, I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I just think this is what we should do. Um, and I love people. Like, I think people bring me more joy than technology in some ways. And so I was just like, always like rallying that team. I was like, we could do it. And I'm, you know, I'm like, I love what I do. I'm actually very passionate about it. And so for me, it was just, you know, seizing those opportunities, speaking up, and then also having good mentorship. You know, I luckily, again, stupidly, will be like, can you help me? You know, people don't want to ask for help. We see that as like a kink in our armor of success. And I'm like, no, go ask for help. Like, straight up, do it. And I asked for help. I had a great mentor. I continued to seek out advice from people that have done it longer than me. I think that's a huge part of my success. And then building real relationships with people, because they're the ones that are going to open the doors for you, especially when the field is so saturated. It's like, who are the people that you can go and tap and be advisors? And then how do you grow your own self? And I think that's a part of it as well. But there was no magic formula. There's a lot of hustle, a lot of work, but a lot of relationship building and a lot of, you know, curiosity and humility, I think, packed into it. And then hoping that the universe hears that and then opens up that timing. Like, you know, it was funny. Like, when I got the opportunity to join GitHub, I was on a panel with Jason Warner. Like, that's how I met. That's how we met. That's how I got my GitHub job, is like, we sat down on a panel because the universe put us together, and we had a really good conversation. Then we started becoming homies, and it was like, hey man, you got the thing. And I was like, I do. And so, you know, that's how.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I think like Your comment about like it's not just about being lucky, but it's also recognizing opportunity when it comes along and then acting on that opportunity. Those are all like incredibly important things. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about Netlify and the sort of like work that you're doing now. So Netlify's had this like very interesting trajectory. Like it was early in the space of when we were doing these like static site hosting or what were they calling it? JAMstack? What was I forget like the terminology we were using.
That's JAMstack.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really fun time where we were like sort of like evolving these new primitives, and I mean, Netlify itself has evolved a ton since then. Can you walk us through like some of that evolution? Yeah, how did it get from like this JAMstack deployment site to this like robust like platform that it is today?
I mean, I'm very fortunate. Matt Billman is like one of those freaking genius engineers. Like I swear to God, he dreams about caching. I'm glad he does. Somebody out there needs to continue to dream about caching for us all. But it was this foundational idea. And I think, again, why I got excited about it is, man, it's so easy to over architect everything and lose sight of the problems at hand and what you're trying to solve. And I've been working with the internet since the internet was a thing. And I'm like, man, we have made the internet hard, especially for like the majority of what it is, which is sharing information, buying, selling goods, trading technology, trading information. Most of the internet is just that. There's some cool stuff that has to go behind it, depending upon the kind of business. But a lot of it's just, it is what it is. It's easy, it's simple, it's small. And so, this Jamstack idea of really utilizing JavaScript APIs and Markdown was like, wait a minute, like we can make most of the internet problems pretty simple, right? And then and really what problems are you solving, right? When we talk about dev tooling, it's like you're talking about time to market, getting the ideas out to the world immediately. And when you have traditional architectures that are full stack, which are still great, you can still have Jamstack with full stack. It's just a separation of concerns so that you can move a little bit quicker and have this decoupling so that you're not bogged down by full system changes for quick changes that should just happen. And it allows really this motion of iteration, right? Because that's all we want to do is we want to comment, like, subscribe, and change, go. It's everything. It's how humans are. And we're only going faster. And so I think that idea was really that decoupling and really to unlock engineering teams at the time. Those poor web developers. I'm a terrible web developer. I was the one on the other end being like, well, we'll get to it. You're like, yes, that's cute. You added a new banner. Like, we'll get to it. It's like, man, how frustrating is that? Because like in software development, man, there's some cynicism. Everybody thinks their job is more important than other person's. It ain't. So, the Jamstack was really about like, how do we really enable that ability to change rapidly by separating concerns, allowing people that do have that ownership to do what they need to do and do it through this API driven architecture, right? And I think the evolution of that is like, wow, stuff with these agents now, like, it's good, separated even more. Stuff's going even faster. You're at computer speed now instead of human speed. And I think that the desire for those serotonin hits of changes needs to happen quicker, but there's still a lot that happens under the hood. And so the evolution is continuing that same journey of like, how can I help people work, which sounds like it's out of both sides of your mouth, independently, but collaboratively, quickly. And I think that's what really agents are doing for us. So to me, it's like this workflow of idea into production is just got accelerated, but it's still the same workflow. It's just now you're just like, and because I've been a DevOps practitioner and dev tooling practitioner for so long, I'm like, it's just hyper speed of the CI/CD that we put in, but now it's done a little bit different. And now you're putting, the first part of that flywheel into some more, air quotes automation, and you're picking the best one out of those to send through the system. And so I think it's an interesting time. And yeah, I mean, it's where I think all technology is kind of moving, and that ability to move fast. So when we think about, again, those initial concepts 10 years ago, Jamstack, it's just about decoupling and composability, and that Silicon Valley word, future proofing, but it truly is. And that's again where like just having APIs. Okay. Like this started with the journey of like API endpoints, and before APIs, there was other versions of that as well. But it's been a long journey, and now we're just on super speed.
So you just said yourself like you're a bad web developer. On other podcasts, you said you're a terrible JavaScript developer, but you're
Terrible.
working at a front end company. Like
Oh.
it's a billboard for front end people. How has that surfaced any challenges for you, and how has that shaped the product?
I think it makes the product better because, like, man, like, you know, I'm a bad like front end developer, but I'm an awesome systems developer, and I know that I can make these systems amazing for y'all. Because I need to let you do what you do best. Like, I'm trying to take away the crap you don't want to think about. Like, I've been doing that for years. I'm like, oh man, you don't want to have to go talk to them about, the telemetry or the RUM of your website. That's why I was at New Relic. I'm like, cool, front end person, do it yourself. And it's been about this enablement. Like, I think if you try to put a front end expert, which I can still do some, okay? $ the world for life, whatever. But like, you don't want me in there doing that. We all gravitate to the things that we love, and I love systems and I love scale. And I think solving those are incredibly important. But the workflows of a JavaScript developer, y'all know better than me. I'm here to listen and take away all the stuff that you really shouldn't care about. Networking, actual protocols, not MCP. I'm talking TCP, IP, okay, stuff that has to work with computers. Binarily. And so that's where I think like it is actually a good mix because I am surrounded by amazing web developers, right? And they're telling me their problems. Like a web developer doesn't typically work on a build system. Would you want a web leader building your build system? Maybe this day and age, I'd be like, hell yeah, do it. But I think you're probably going to want a different type of nerd, and you're going to want a nerd that does that well, but you're going to get the experience out of it. That's why there's still a ton of jobs to be done. And I think it's interesting that I am in this position because I'm looking at it through the lens of like enablement. You can't be good at everything, but the things I am really good at, like that's the thing I'm trying to solve for is like, how do we create a golden path for y'all just to unlock your ideas? Like you have the ideas, like I'm just building the tools.
I like that framing. So you're talking about enablement, which is, why we're in DevTools, enabling people. And then sort of like to take this back, you're talking about like opening Netlify up, not just to, the traditional front end crowd, but like more to the world of like now people have these agents and they can spin up these experiences and companies like Netlify are well positioned to sort of help people take these nascent ideas that they might not have the full experience about and like actually make them into something real. And you'll have this, term you've kind of coined, which is like agent experience as a, sidecar to like developer experience or user experience. And I'm curious if you could just like kind of talk a little bit about like where did the framing of that come from? And yeah, just like how are y'all talking about it internally, thinking about it? Like what does that look like inside of Netlify?
Well, I think like, the term developer is definitely shifting. I mean, it still exists, but like you go and read any of like the tech circles, it's like, I haven't written a line. Even the hardest core techies, like they're like, I haven't written code for anything. What a dude from Claude say today? He's like, I use Claude to write Claude. I'm like, I know you do. Like, I know. It's like there's still a huge conglomerate of what I will say right now, we put as the typical developer that is still existing, right? They're outside of this AI hype, but I'm sorry, like this hype is real. Yeah, there's a bubble in it, but it's not going anywhere. We've unleashed the hounds, okay? It's here. And so I think this expanding definition of developer is really coming into the people that are far beyond the practice of computer science, that are far beyond even like me in the sense that I did have some education through USMRE, but then hands-on. And it's now you're sitting behind a box that does it for you and you're just talking. And it's incredibly powerful. And it only gets better the more the people use it. That's how it works. It gets better the more you use it. And so when we think about this evolution, it was full stack dev. Now it's back end, front end. Now it's services. Now it's DevOps. You're seeing a conglomeration of that persona come into one. And it's one, but it's wide. And I know we hear a lot about like taste and like all that matters taste. And I agree, it does. There's still jobs to be done before we get to that nirvana state of just good opinions are the only ones that count. And there's still governance, privacy, and policy. And so when we talk about, this wider definition of developer, there is this component of citizen developer. And a portion of that citizen developer will become a professional developer because they're selling their idea and they've never written a line of code. But there's tools being built around it to make sure the checks and balances are there. And so when we talk about this agent experience, it's about seeing this evolution of how we think about the interaction of all this code, right? And I think the easiest way to think about this is when we went and coined user experience, it was pretty clear that the output of the software is to do X for a human, the end user. Developer experience was this development software will do this for this builder. This agent experience is like your builder is now a robot. It's still dictated by you, but it can do things at scale. It can do things that we would do, it would take hours and hours for us to do or to set up. It can do it at scale. And so it's really, it's about how do you apply the logic of what you currently served to this new artificial user that can do stuff faster and can do it at scale. And so agent experience isn't reinventing the wheel. It's not saying like, oh man, all that beautiful API calls that you had, you got to go rework them. But it is going and saying, now that you have an agent hitting that endpoint, you have your rate limiting right. Before a person would hit a couple times. Maybe you wrote a script and it would be like great. But now you have some wild, indeterminate, crazy developer that's going to go and pound your systems. And maybe you need the backend systems to be bigger. And maybe you need to rethink about who is the end user utilizing this. And there's always going to be this like Venn diagram of that trifecta now: user experience, developer experience, agent experience. And the agent experience bleeds into both, because depending upon if this is now your new artificial user hitting your site, or if this is your artificial dev building your site, there's still going to be an entry point in. And so the way that we think about this is really about digging deeper into, like, again, like in the back end of these systems and the way that we handle our tooling and the trading of information. What do we need to evolve? And where does that lever of it becoming more agentic versus more human driven? And to me, the biggest delta, and there's probably some others, are, again, scale and speed. Takes us a little bit longer than it's going to take the machine, but the experience is probably going to be the same on the end. It's just, again, what are those systems in the back and how are they behaving? And then what matters? And of course, some bias here, right? I think about performance all day. So I'm sitting here going like, what are the things that matter? Governance, security, privacy, performance, uptime, reliability. Because the experience, I have to trust that to be, again, curated and created, but there's still the law of physics. And there is still boundaries within computers. We don't have the quantum computing yet. We don't have the endless power sources. So I think there's still a big amount of optimization. So agent experience is really that in two folds, is really updating, creating, and curating for that, whether it be end users or internal developers, and adding that layer of experience on how you approach building and how you refactor and how you rebuild. Because there are going to be moments where you're going to be like, listen, sir, it didn't serve. First of all, half our APIs barely serve our purpose that we designed for today. A lot of them are crap because, maintenance on an API is hard. And it's like, okay, great. How do we now do this when there's a million different variables in play that we don't even know? It's hard. So it's going to be interesting. And that, there's a lot of talk of agent to agent and all of that. But this is, again, where I think this evolution of agent experience is coming through. And again, that user base.
Yeah, the user base changing is kind of wild. Like, I've seen so many developers on Blue Sky that are like, I don't know code at all. And they're like producing apps that other people use. Like, I literally saw this one person that's like, oh, there's this weird Webpack error I see. I hope I can push this production and it's okay. And it's like this totally non-technical person working like at the level we all worked before AI tools, like effectively, and providing support for that through like services is going to be like a whole new set of challenges when like you're used to dealing with like technical people. And now the feedback you get is like, it don't work. I don't know why.
Oh, I love it. I love it because I love people and I tell myself this, but you're like, oh man, we get a lot of questions on DNS. Like, first of all, DNS is hard, okay? It's hard for us that have been dealing with this crap forever. You think it'd be easy. It's a bunch of records. It is not. And so, like, you get a lot of these new citizen developers, they don't know what back is. Shit, they do not know how the internet works. And so you're like, okay, where does the teaching moment matter? And so on your version, like, they're probably going to take that error. They're going to go in Chat GPT and be like, WTF, what does this mean? It's going to be like, dude, you're probably already pushed it to production. Trust. I mean, the security space is just going to get better. CVEs, oof, there's going to be all sorts of nonsense. But then on the other hand, on like some of the like stuff, you should, again, I say, keep a beginner's mindset. Be curious. It's like, you can go ask it what DNS is, and then you're not going to know how to like fix DNS. You're not going to know how to fix DNS. And so, again, I think there's a pretty big gap, but yeah, you read it on Blue Sky, you're like, oh my gosh, like, and it's real. I see it every day. And they're really, on one hand, you're like, heck yeah, this is incredible. Like, people, because we're the ones that are going to get the experience out of it. Like, who are we, the gatekeepers of saying your idea is better than my idea? We're the unlockers of it. Like, I don't know, it could be anybody anywhere have the next best idea, and Apple may fall off their head like Newton. I don't know, but like, it is wacky when you're like, man, I've spent my whole career being this person, and like and they just caught up in 20 days. It's a little hard. It's like, man, that's why I'm like, maybe I should go into cosmetology. Maybe, robots and scissors don't mix. But no, it's interesting. I think you have to look at it in that lens of, we're going to have to solve the bigger problems because of this. And it is true.
Yeah, I've had to start looking at my own role differently also. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Now that I can wield concepts rather than implement code, it like kind of changes how I view myself. Like in the past, like, oh, I want to add vector embedding search to whatever. I'm like, oh, that's not something that I do or want to like spend weeks like getting the hang of. But it's like now I can just say, hey, I know about this concept and I know about this tool that kind of works for that concept. Go do it for me. And the same thing works with like platforms. So I've been like using Railway to deploy a side project. I haven't interacted with it at all. I just use their MCP server and I talk to my chat and it sets all the services up for me.
Yeah. And that's where, again, I'm like, it's great to be a bad front-end developer because I have the world's biggest helper. I'm like everybody else has said, I've prompted more code than I have in a long, long time. And it's because I have the foundation like you do that says, oh, I know I want to try this out, but I'd have to go like practice and learn how to do it. Like, I've been learning Rust forever. But now I can be like, I know I want to use Rust. I know how it would work. I know why. Cool. Go help me build this and that. And that's where it's like you're shortcutting, but you still have that foundational understanding. And I feel like as leaders, that's a gap. And as a platform provider, it's a gap that we got to fulfill. It's like bridging those together until they don't matter anymore. And they won't matter one day. I'm sorry, they won't. Well, it'll be a different set of problems, but these ones that we're hemming and hawing about ain't going to matter.
One thing that I suspect like factors into the sort of agent experience conversation that I've seen in my own way is like, oftentimes building good tools, building good software for humans makes agents better. And, it's like, semantic, consistent APIs can matter a lot. Really, really good error messages that like give a lot of context and detail about what went wrong and at least points you to some resources of here, like what to do. In the past, we have like been like, okay, well, this is consumed by like a very technical person and like, we're going to give like a minimal explanation and they'll figure it out. And it's like, now there's like a little bit more extra thinking. It's like, well, we want our tools to be able to navigate this in some different way. And I like the knock-on effect of like, actually, as someone coming through who maybe not as well versed in all of the systems, it's like, these new error messages are great. It's like, it's actually giving people more context. And my hope is that as we build software to be consumed by agents in some ways, that we actually make it easier for people to consume. That's not necessarily a guarantee, but I hope that as people are building things and thinking about agent interaction, that we're actually pushing on like better experiences in general.
They go hand in hand. Exactly, right? It's like if you're going to be doing this in human understood and readable formats, like guess what? You're going to have to do it that way better as well for the systems because it's still all been learned off humans. And so like, it's built off of us. And I agree. And I think that's the interesting thing where it's like where those intersections start happening is, the architectural practices and the just the best practices, architectural aside of like how to make stuff intuitive for machines and humans so that we can continue to ask the right questions and get the right inputs and outputs in the system. And a lot of it is in natural language. And I do agree. And I think that if we do software better, it teaches the patterns of how to make better things as well. We're still so far from it just being totally autonomous. So I do feel like, I was making a joke. I'm like, man, like how much do frameworks matter anymore? Like when I'm like, build me a website, I'm like, whatever, Claude, pick whatever website, pick whatever framework works best. And so I think there's still this need though to teach the right use cases so that we can continue to get the best experiences. Cause I've also had these agents build crazy overkill stuff. I was building a bingo app, a fun, dumb game. Okay. But I had some stupid rules in it. Nothing too nuts. And it's like Firebase. I was like, man, that is so overkill for my bingo app. I'm like, how much money I'm going to spend up me a whole Firebase stack for some bingo? I think so. So I think maybe I would. I did. I left it because I was like, oh, this is interesting. What else are we going to do? It got a little overkill. It cost me too much money for bingo. But I think that's how systems are going to get better. That's how we up level. But I think, what Andrew was saying, like all of our jobs are changing. My job's changing. Everybody's job's changing. And you're being asked, frankly, to do more. I don't know how else to do. Like you're being asked to do more. That's at the end of the day, because it's like, cool, you got a tool, go do more. And it's like, yes, but didn't we do this so that we could do more, but not actually like continue to do more? Like, yes, I've optimized what took 40 hours. Now you don't want me to do 80 hours. So we've produced 160. So that's where I think stuff's getting a little dangerous, but we're going to recognize that, yes, we all have to do more. And I think making it easier is one part of that, and making it more intuitive.
Yeah. A little caveat that the production of more code does not necessarily mean shipping more code is faster or easier by any means. I read so much more code now than I think I have in a long time. Cool. I would like to move on a little bit and talk about some of Netlify's like AI offerings. And on this podcast, we've sort of like struck this balance because like so much of the industry is talking about this now, and we haven't really dug too deeply in a lot of the conversations with tools that are using AI. But I think the offerings that Netlify have are really interesting, and I think probably on the forefront of what we're going to see from more companies, as it has been since the JAMstack days. So you have this feature called Agent Runners, which essentially lets you like prompt like Claude or Codex or Gemini, and then do that deployment sort of directly. This like very, very fast feedback loop where instead of, it's almost like local in the cloud.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I'd love to just chat more about that. What was the inspiration for it? Like, how do you see that used, like, et cetera?
Oh man. So we had been trying to solve this problem for a hot minute, right? Is like, we've made it super easy to connect a Git repo, do your build and deploy. You don't even know a build system. You got to do this. You're going to just deploy. It's going to feel like magic. And it's like, man, these cool coding platforms and agents, like you are on fire, but there's still this handoff that's happening. And we had this product called Netlify Create, which was really about this abstraction of a visual editor so that non-technical teammates could come and change the website and not have to go into the CMS and not have to go do all the nonsense or not have to, it's web developers. So we had this vision already of like, you know what, this can be easier. And so we put out this visual editor. It was hard. Okay. Like you got to do a lot of work on the underscene to like align components. It was really hard. All right. But the idea was right. Okay. Like we knew, and we still know that everybody wants to participate. Everybody has a dang opinion. You have an opinion and you want to iterate fast on an opinion. And now with these coding agents, man, you're inspired. Like you're like change. And what we see is this behavior of Netlify usage already is like, if you're prototyping, people are deploying. It's like you can see it local dev, but like you said, it's like local in the cloud. And so agent runners, we're like, man, we know that people want to use Create. We know that they want to collaborate. We know that they're using coding agents. What if we pull the coding agents closer to the deployment? Because really, people are not going and sharing like their 127 address and then saying, here, go install my website. Tell me what you think. Like, don't it's a pain in the butt, like to go download. I mean, it's definitely a pain in the butt, but it is. Especially when you have a stakeholder that's not working that way. And when I was at GitHub rollback time, we did code spaces, which was meant to be your ID in the cloud. It cost a lot of money. It was still just for developers, and you really couldn't have your stakeholders look at your stuff. So it was good for a purpose. So long story longer, we're like, man, I still think it'd be great for rapid innovation, and the site's already deployed. The build's already there. We already have preview deploys. We already have this concept of branch deploys. And really, all we've done is we've pulled in that agentic experience into Netlify, and we're allowing you to use that Netlify flow of being like, cool, here's the website. You want to go say, great, I have a new campaign, I have a new banner. We make agent runs for everything. I think the design team are going to smack me if I change the navigation bar. Don't worry, I haven't merged anything if they're listening. But what you can do is you can go and experiment and run stuff, and it does it on a protected branch as a live preview. And now you can hit that agent run against Codex, Gemini, etc. And you can see the different ways that these models and agents are going to approach it, which people go do it. We're the AI gateway. Like, don't even worry about it. You're running this through Netlify, so you don't have to go put in your credit cards, etc. So it's like, great, I want to go make a rapid change on the website. It's already live in production. I've come in here, I said, Gemini, run this, and I'm looking at these 3 of them, the live preview. As soon as I'm like, this one is the right one, you like it too? I can send you the URL right now. I hit merge and it's done. It's done. You're still going to go through your CID pipeline. So if you've configured any checks and balances, that's still going to happen. But it just makes it quick. And yes, you could go into Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code, but you're sitting there having to say deploy, check, and the workflow brings you out. What we find is once you deploy the first time, you can iterate right there. And it is a little bit different for traditional developers because we're used to working in our IDE, but not us new hot, and I'm calling myself one now, not us new hot front-end devs. We're just like, sweet. Here, go do an agent run yourself. Maybe you don't merge, but you can show your stakeholders and run it. And just makes that feedback loop incredibly quick and that process frictionless. And I do think you're going to see more and more of that. Why wouldn't you? Because we've always said, there's no better testing than in production. And it also changes the way you think about A/B testing. Now with this, you can go really take it off to the rails and say, I want to do some double testing. Because at Netlify, again, we have an intelligent network that utilizes functions so that you can display what you want in those different experiences. And there's a lot of ways that you can get that feedback very safely because your controls and governance are still there. It's just now you're just rapidly iterating. And it's been pretty fun. I said, the one thing I'll say is like, we're working on really trying to think about the different people that are going to use that because they're going to want to have different controls. Like I was joking, changing the navigation of a website is a big deal. People don't go do it. And if you have a design team, go talk to them first. But like before, that would not be something that you're just going to go and approach. You'd be like hands off, or maybe, there could be, you have some old monolith and you're like, I don't know, I'm going to change this one thing. I don't know if I'm going to change another. Perfect. It's like give you some safety because it's going to scan that monolith faster than you can. That's again where I'm like, use an agent. Like you're not going to go read all that code. I mean, I'm reading way more code, but that's really what agent runners is intended to do. And there's other things that you can do beyond that. Like I like to kick off a run on the same prompt because I want to see the difference, but I can also serialize my work streams, kick off one prompt here, kick another one off here. And then I'm running 3 fixes at once. And because you're all Git based, guess what? You're not going to have merge conflicts. It's like you are now 3 developers. And it's pretty freaking sweet. So now I'm a really good front end developer. I don't have any taste though, so I'm not that good. But I can sling the code.
Yeah, that also must just open up so much opportunity for other non-developers to contribute to the
Oh yeah.
projects. Like, especially since like with some of these platforms where it's like it prompt to get an app, you're like they hide the code completely. And as a developer myself, I'm like, well, sometimes I need to go in there and like look at what you're doing wrong so I can prompt you to do the right thing. But having that collaboration and that shared surface seems very powerful.
Yeah, because I can go see. I'll be like, I still think it's great for, tech writers, content people. It's like, cool. You're not going in CMS. You're not going anywhere. It's like, go like, and us as a developer that still have the keys to the queendom, I'm like, great. I can see what changed. I can make sure it's good. And I would much rather move faster on that than like waiting for that ticket to come in, filling that dang ticket out, especially when it's a change like that. You just want to make it go. But obviously, you could talk about it all day. It's a pretty cool tool. You also try it. Let me know. Give me your feedback.
Yeah, I like the idea that, there's so often that folks will just have ideas, but like not have the expertise. And I've seen companies, and mine has experimented with like giving a lot of people across the organization access to like Cloud Code and other tools to like, yeah, you can pull down our product and like play with it or whatever. But environments are hard to sync up, you like got all these environment variables and all this stuff that you got to do, and you got to worry about security and, yada, yada, yada. And oftentimes it's like, no, all they want is that experience. Is like, all I want to do is like have a magic box where I can ask it to do a thing and see the thing and then show somebody else. And that's it.
It's great. Like the chief revenue officer was like, I just did a agent run on the website because he wanted to add some documentation for something he was doing. And I was like, all right, let me see. Let me show you some pair programming. So I went and I looked at it and I was like, exactly to your point, Justin, before he would have had to go have Git installed, install the Netlify app locally, which good luck, homie, we're a 10-year-old company, and then try to figure out how he's even going to get that coding agents to do anything, like straight up. This, he could just be like, cool, I want to add this documentation, and it's there. I'm like, dude, you just added some documentation. Of course, I'm going to merge that. Boom. But still teaching them that practices of having a PR reviewer and looking at it. It was pretty interesting. But yeah, it really takes out a lot of that setup, which, it's scary, but also scary.
So before we move on to our closing questions, let's talk a little bit more about your AI offerings. You mentioned AI Gateway. That seems interesting and can save you a lot of money. But lately, my mind's been on MCP servers. I work on a design system here at Snowflake, and the MCP server was just like an enormous unlock in like productivity and like correctness within our system. And I was like kind of blown away by how much that needle had moved in about a year. You guys have an MCP server too at Netlify. Can you walk us through like what it does and kind of what it enables?
I mean, just like, you got to think about this, right? Your MCP is your UI to your agent. It's just giving you the boundaries of what it can and cannot do. So our MCP server does all the things that you expect to get from Netlify from that CLI experience too. But again, so your agent can do it. And it's the same concepts that you think of applying that control system with your design system. I love design systems. I'm glad we're going to talk about that. But I think it is that huge unlock because you're given the written rule set of how to interact with the service, but for, again, an agentic experience. I mean, MCPs are the protocol for agents. Again, it's the UI. And so for us, we have a pretty simple, easy MCP experience so that you can get all of this out of Netlify. You can go into your ID, but the Netlify MCP, and then you can do all the stuff that I was trying to talk about and more, but do it in a more automated workflow. And again, it's to allow everybody else to participate with the right boundaries that you have. And so it's just another way for people to participate, well, people, agents and people, us as well, to participate with Netlify, but it mimics all of our other offerings. But yeah, I think it's really allowed you that sense of like, I've put the rules in place for the system to only do this one behavior, but be able to unlock that through that agent workflow. And so, There's nothing really fancy there. I don't know. Aren't MCPs so 2005? Like what, Andrew? What's the new hotness? Like, I mean, give me the hot deeds, right? I thought we were going back to just API first.
Skills are the big thing now, I guess.
Oh man, skills are. You're right.
We're going back to Markdown, which like brings us back to Jam. So well,
It's always been about Markdown.
It's always been about Markdown, but why are we not surprised that we're coming back to Markdown? Again, human readable, natural language.
Yep.
Markdown, human readable, natural language. It makes freaking sense. I can't wait till just everything talks in like, new vernaculars. Then we know we've really conquered all these when it's just saying, no, brah, it's wrong. So we're getting close to that. We're getting close to that landscape. But no, happy to talk more about our MCP. But yeah, that's exactly it. It's pretty simple. You can deploy, you can roll back, you can set your domain, you can do all the stuff. Just gives you the rules of Netlify.
Cool. Before we wrap up, I also want to ask a little bit of a divergent question in the sort of like leadership space. So, as an executive, a leader in companies like Netlify, you've obviously had to do a lot of team building, a lot of hiring. And I mean, I think hiring in the engineering space is a fraught thing. We kind of all know this. Everybody's been through the whiteboard or the live coding interview or whatever that's felt like not great. And it's hard to, in an hour or 3 hours or whatever, get a good sense of who someone is and how they'll work and whatever else. So it's hard from both sides. And I'm sure you have a lot of opinions about hiring. I would love to sort of like just get your perspective on like building software teams. And, now sometimes we're in an interview and we're actually interviewing 3 gremlins in a trench coat. And, it's like hard to know that, someone is who they say they are and, they're actually representing their real knowledge and not, a live AI agent that's like feeding them answers or whatever. So how do you think about hiring and how's that evolved in the age of, intelligence on demand?
Oh man, this is a tough one because it's like, if you are a part of this AI wave and you're sitting here going like, somebody is like gaming our interview because they're using AI, I'm like, don't you kind of want them to? I'm sorry. Like, don't you want them to? Why wouldn't you want them to? Because you're going to have them use AI at work. And if they can get through an interview, obviously I don't want them to. But I'm saying like, you got to take that with a little bit of like, shit, like I want their workflow to be driven through agents because I don't expect them to work that slow. But on the other hand, I get 3 hours with this person. Like, do they know anything? Because it's a balance. And this is the same conversation that we're having about like, development as a practice today is like, where does junior engineers, how do they get to staff when they're just sitting there and prompting? Okay. You got to change how you interview. You've got to change it. Whiteboarding is not going to, does whiteboarding matter to your business? Yes, no, maybe so, probably not. Okay. What matters? Effective communication, integrity, like authenticity, passion, curiosity, and problem solving. And like, I used to get silly interview questions back in the day that they do not do anymore to y'all, but it would be very philosophical. Like, you have like an eraser and a pencil. Like, what would you do with it? Why? You're like, oh my gosh, why were you asking me a pencil and an eraser? What does that have to do with tech? But I do think that the way that you interview has to change because you're now mining more so for critical thinking than anything else. And I think that if you have something that can be gamified or taken off the internet or utilize an agent, you're not going to get what you want. You're going to get exactly what you need. And it's like, okay. And you have to think about that whole experience. Like, you do want to see the use of how do I utilize an agent to do my work, like do that in real time, like screen share, but you have to change the way that you interview. And you also have to change your hangups of it. Like, I heard a whole bunch of people, like I'm on a group with a bunch of CTOs, and this was like probably a year ago. They're like, dude, what do you think of like using AI in interviews? No way, man. Like, that's how you're going to suss out. And I'm like, y'all are all telling all your staff. Now you all have mandates to your staff to use AI. Like, How are you do you want to have a whole bunch of cynics come into your organization because their first experience was like, no, we don't want you to use any AI. We just want you to build it. Sorry, like you got to kind of embrace it. So for me, when I think about teams, there's two parts here. I think what are we evolving to? Again, like this grounding in like our workflows. What do I want people to be great at? Again, I want great people, and great people have behavioral traits that make them awesome to work with. And those are things that you cannot teach. You cannot teach somebody to be curious. You just have to be. But you can't teach somebody to have integrity. They just have to. So I think it's really about understanding the gaps within your team, what you're forming, and then having real ways to mine how they have that critical thinking when applied to building. And I think that pair programming is still the most, even though it may not be programming per se, it's still the most powerful thing you can do. And it's that concept of like, great, let's go open up your IDE. Shoot, let's go open up anything and let's just talk about it. Let's go build this app together, you and me. That's the best interview I could think of, is being like, Andrew, Justin, we're building an e-commerce app. Let's go bring a terminal up. What do you want to ask it? What do you want to ask it? Why'd you ask it that? What would you do next? Can't gamify that. Can't fake that out. But you can have a little fun and see how they work well with others, see how they communicate, and then ask different pointed questions about the pieces of the loop. Especially as we were talking about this developer persona becoming a lot wider and the hats that we wear becoming many, and the responsibilities that we shepherd are beyond building code and systems. Those are the things that you have to surface for, because you're evolving this team. And the way that I built teams 2 years ago, I would not build them the way that I would build them now. I think there's some changes in the approach that we have with the makeup of the team, and really a lot of these tooling, and the tooling that we've been building in DevTools forever is for autonomy. And so like, you want to build autonomous teams, but you want them to feel connected to the mission. And like having you be allergic in the AI in the interview, kind of like anti-mission in a lot of ways. So I don't have the perfect rule for it, but I just try to look at things more holistically and really try to break out some of those systems that we had in the past. Like, let me pass you this GitHub repo and go do something. I ain't going to tell you shit about anybody. Or even looking at their contribution margin. Whiteboarding exercise, maybe, but do you need them to do that? Or are you going to have somebody that's going to hate working for you because they think every project should start with an architectural discussion? That's also something you probably don't want. You got to think about that more well-rounded, in my opinion.
Have some of those learnings made their way into the Netlify hiring process yet?
Oh yeah, I mean, we are, and man, we're dog food everywhere. Our HR talent coordinator, she wrote a whole new interview application. She vibe coded a whole new app in Flow. Like she gonna vibe code. You're gonna vibe code with her before you get in, because that's what she can do. Yes, we have changed a lot of the things, but we still do some of the traditional stuff. I keep a lot of the autonomy with the team because they're going to mine for different areas, but one of them being incredibly important is that use and that comfort of utilizing agents, and that demonstration of how you would approach it in today's software, workflows of how to use agents. That's the biggest part that shifted, is really drilling into that versus just do computer.
It's wise. It's a changing landscape. So as our last question, for someone who's been a CTO for such a long time at this point, what is like the one piece of advice you'd give to a person who wants to end up there in their career?
Don't do it. No, I'm joking. Do it. Totally do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. I think my one advice is like, figure out the path of your CTO version. There's so many, just like developers, there's so many different versions of being a chief technology officer, and there's not one right way to be one. And I think it's really about mining where you're passionate about that, and navigating your career with a place that supports that version of your in CTO. Some CTOs are really just chief architects, and they don't do the leadership and business side. Some just do the business side. It doesn't matter. And so my advice is, at the end of the day, go for it. Just go for it. Grind, stay hungry, be curious, and make relationships. Because anything beyond, like, when you're talking about the leadership rungs, it's if you're not hands to keyboard, it's all about relationship building, but you have to be smart too. So like, my advice is stay curious, keep prompting code. You ain't writing it. I don't know. And I don't know, go for it. Like a lot of people don't think they can do it, but you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dana. This was a lovely conversation about all things AI and Netlify. So thanks for coming on and talking about it.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Loved hearing your experience. Yeah, I don't know. Need to check out some of Netlify's offerings. And, also, you mentioned earlier, you're a 10-year-old company. Props for continuing to innovate because, sometimes, it can get stale and you're, still pushing at the forefront. That's exciting to see.
Thanks for the love. And I hope people go check it out too.